Thank you again. If you don't mind, we typically just like to start with a brief background of yours on what got you into cartooning, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Okay, well, let's see. I've always doodled and cartooned from as far back as I can remember, and I figure that by the time I got out of elementary school, I probably already put in my 10,000 hours because I just drew on everything all the time. So I remember in high school, I was interviewed because I was doing a sports cartoon for our school newspaper. And I was asked what I wanted to be in life. And I remember saying a satisfied cartoonist. That's a quote. And
a satisfying cartoonist?
A satisfied cartoonist.
Is what you said in high school?
Not too ambitious even. And then when I got out of, I did various cartooning jobs in high school. And then after high school, I did illustrations for math books. When I was still in high school, I did a sports cartoon for the Palo Alto Times showing the rankings of the schools in the league with the mascots in different positions according to how they're ranked for that week. So that's kind of a thumbnail of my early stuff. And then when I got into college, I went into fine arts and I wanted to be a painter. And I pursued that and stayed in school until I was close to 30, hanging out in the art department. I went first to San Jose State, and then eventually I got an MFA in painting from UC Berkeley. And intended to keep painting after that and possibly teach. The MFA degree is a good one for teaching, or really was pretty necessary to teach at a college level. But not too long after that, within the first couple of years, I met a cartoonist. His name was Charlie Dennis, and he had made a livelihood, put his kids through college and everything, doing cartoons for $5 and $10 magazine. They paid that $5 to $10 per cartoon. And he did all the farm magazines and all sorts of kind of obscure magazines that most people have never heard of, that he kept hundreds, thousands, I guess, of cartoons circulating and managed to make a pretty good living. So he showed me some tips on how to submit cartoons, and I needed a lot of tips because on the inspiration of his example, I started to try to submit a few, and I was so concerned about copyright and people stealing my work and all that I was registering them, the cartoons. I was encasing them in plastic so they wouldn't get coffee stains on them and all that. So he straightened me out, and eventually I got into a pattern of submitting cartoons to, in my case, it was about 50 magazines. And I tried the New Yorker right off the bat. And when I got my first reject note, I said, what the hell with this? I'm going to try the other markets. And I didn't try them again for about 6 months. And then when I did start submitting to them again, they wanted my ideas, but they didn't buy my drawings.
And when was this?
This was all late 70s, long time ago now.
So they bought your ideas for another cartoonist to draw?
Yeah, back then they did that, I think, more commonly than they do now. And they kind of got away from it, I think, during the Bob Mankoff years. Mm-hmm. But most of my cartoons were drawn up by Charles Addams and a few by George Price. And I was always anxious for them to buy my drawings, of course. Mm-hmm. And so on one cartoon that they bought, one idea, I took a stand and I said, I would like to do this drawing. Give me a shot at it. Well, it was one they wanted for Charles Addams. And if I'd known in advance, oh, I should say that the cartoon was the front of a castle with all of the armor and weaponry out in front, and then a sign saying, "Abdicating everything must go." And Carl, I didn't know when I insisted on doing this drawing that Charles Addams actually collected medieval armor. It was a specialty of his and a passion. And so I went to the library and studied up on these are pre-Google days, so I actually had to go through old books and encyclopedias, and I made it all very accurate and sent it off. Sort of held my breath and got a note back saying, basically, good try, but we still think Charles Addams would do the right job on this one.
Wow.
But it wasn't too long after that they did finally buy one of my ideas.
Wow.
Well, you at least initially kind of honored that Charles Addams and Price wanted to draw your stuff, or did you really just want your own cartoons in there?
It was both, but yeah, definitely. Charles Addams was a big name. The Addams family, of course, was on TV, or had been, fairly recently. And no, that was pretty cool. And I met him in the office once when I came in. I've always been out in California, but I'd go in about once a year into the green room, and all the old timers were there. All the guys who I admired. They were pretty much all guys back in those days. And Charles Addams came through once, and I wanted to tell him, that he's doing a good job on my work, on my ideas. But Mick Stevens kind of beat me to it and said, you've been doing some ideas. And Charles Addams went, harumph, and went on to talk to the art director. So
Wow.
I skipped actually shaking his hand.
Wow.
Ouch. Yes.
What was the first one that you sold that was actually your drawing?
It was back then. There was such an emphasis on businessmen and boardrooms and all of that. My first one was a business one too, and it was a little kid applying for a job, and let's see. Oh, I guess he wasn't applying. He was just sitting in front of the boss, and the boss is looking at a resume or whatever and saying, "It's come to our attention that you falsified your age on your application." And he was like a 6-year-old kid. So that was the big joke, but they bought it.
And how did they let you know that they wanted you to draw it?
No trumpets or anything. They just they put a little circle in the corner of the drawing if it was an okay.
Wow.
And prior to that, they were saying, okay, idea only?
Prior to that, you get mostly form rejection notices.
But when they bought just the idea.
When they bought the idea, they write a note just saying, we like this one for Charles Addams or George Price, and then I'd have to okay it.
Was the pay different when it was the idea versus the full idea plus the drawing?
Yeah. The pay was, I think they were paying like $350 a cartoon back then. I think Charles Addams probably got a little more, but that was sort of standard if you weren't on contract. So that was the goal back then, and I think the idea is sold for 100, 150 or something like that.
Yeah.
And back then, the New Yorker was still the pinnacle. That was always kind of the top of the mountain.
That was the net, yeah.
Wow.
What other magazines were you submitting to back then?
A lot of magazines that have dropped cartoons, but TV Guide was a thrill when I sold my first one to them. Saturday Review was going strong, and they were buying cartoons. Let's see, National Lampoon bought some of mine, and then I did all the women's magazines from Family Circle rather to Ladies Home Journal and Better Homes and Gardens. Ran two cartoons per issue. So that was always kind of a prize too.
Yeah, that was kind of like the last hurrah of the cartoons and magazines right then. Yeah,
it really was. Well, I think when the internet started to take over, cartoons became pretty passe for most of those magazines. A few still do, but most of the, especially women's magazines, have dropped them.
Your artwork is so great. I'm surprised that they took a long time to buy your cartoons over just buying your ideas.
Thanks. It was. I actually got in pretty quickly, given they kind of made you prove yourself, and I got in the office right away, and that was a coup in itself. So I guess Lee Lorenz liked my style well enough to at least let me come in person and bring drawings in. But most people, I can't say most, but there are all these old men with white beards like mine, waiting to get into the room and show Lee their work. And I think some of them never got past the receptionist. It was pretty exclusive, and I think they kind of enjoyed that elitism. And it was they seemed to accept maybe only between 1 and 3 new names per year.
Oh, wow.
For those early years. So I actually felt pretty lucky that I got in within about a year.
Yeah. And then once they started buying, they were pretty consistently buying from you from that point on?
If you can say one cartoon the next year was consistent, yeah. Yeah, it took quite a while to build any momentum.
You've had probably close to 500, right, in the New Yorker?
I actually lost count, but it's somewhere around there, I think. Yeah,
It's close to about 500 on cartoon stock. I don't know how accurate that is, but it's probably close to accurate.
I think it's in that area. Yeah.
So back then, before Bob Mankoff, they weren't doing the face-to-face cartoon drop-off meetings where you can kind of just show up anyone off the street and pitch your cartoons to them.
No, most people had to drop their portfolio, their samples off with a receptionist if they came in person. And if you're on contract, I think you were a sure bet to get in the door. But even then, I remember other cartoonists were upset, ones who were even on contract, who they weren't turned away. But I remember Lee commenting, it's kind of crowded in here. Maybe you could just send your work in for a while or something. And of course, that was crushing back then. But I never got that word because I only came in about once a year. I didn't have to worry about that.
Were you living in Berkeley at the time?
Yeah, I've been here the whole time. I tried living near the city for about 3 months once, and in New Fairfield, Connecticut. I commuted in on book days, and I made the rounds to all the magazines, which was kind of like Disneyland for a cartoonist, because I meet with all of the cartoon editors for all the women's magazines and the business magazines and all that. So that was always kind of a thrill.
So when you said you wanted to be a satisfied cartoonist, what did you mean by that?
I guess at that point, I sort of pictured maybe being syndicated, or possibly even doing political cartoons, and without a whole lot of glory. But I just thought it'd be a great life, to be able to stay home and doodle all day, which is what I did through school anyway.
So with syndication, you were thinking more of like a comic strip than the single panel?
Yeah, it was more back then. But there were some panels back then, but strips were the big deal.
How did you get into the single panels then?
It was really the influence of this guy I happened to meet who was making a living, Charlie Dennis.
Oh, okay.
He showed me it was possible. I didn't think anyone could actually make a living, just sending around to different magazines. I didn't know it was lucrative enough to get by, and it barely is.
Yeah. So would you say today that you're a satisfied cartoonist?
Yeah, I guess so. I got a little more ambitious along the way and a little more frustrated over things. So it's, but overall, I would.
That's awesome.
Well, you did get a syndicated cartoon for a while there. That's Life back at the late 90s. You did that for what,
Yeah.
6 years?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, and that was
6 years. Yeah.
yeah. So that was kind of like the New Yorker style cartoon, though. That was
It
a
sort of
single
was.
panel.
Yeah, I tried to make it a little bit different than the New Yorker cartoons. A little heavier line and kind of withheld the things that I thought were more sophisticated.
Yeah.
You know, a little more mainstream is what I was going for. But it was kind of a hodgepodge of captionless ones. You know, there's a little of everything. I think if I named it anything but That's Life, it probably would have had a little longer life. But, yeah.
How did you like that? Was that, there's a daily deadline for you with that one?
I guess it's a weekly deadline.
A weekly. Okay,
yeah,
that was a weekly
yeah.
one.
Yeah, and I didn't feel too much pressure on it, but I have to say when it finally petered out, which happened when the comics pages started cutting back on the strips, and it was the loss of revenue because the computer age starting to enter into circulation problems and all that. When mine was dropped, I actually did feel kind of relieved. But even though I really enjoyed doing it at the time.
Okay.
You were drawing a lot in high school, but were you involved in humor as well? Because obviously the New Yorker is more than just drawing.
No, just other than being the class clown, no. I was kind of a terror to my teachers through the years, just because I was kind of a hog for attention and making wise ass comments a lot, but that's as far as the humor went.
So considering the background in cartooning and painting, it would seem doing covers for the New Yorker would be kind of right up your alley. Is that something you pursued?
Really sporadically, and then they have not purchased a cover from me. And they're kind of off of doing really cartoony type covers nowadays. But there was a stretch when there were a few cartoonists that were doing occasional covers anyway for them, and I thought I could kind of get in on that, but they never bought any of mine.
Yeah, I would think being a painter would kind of put you.
It should, yeah. Everything's all lined up, but pretty much form rejects.
Is it something you still try to do today, or you kind of gave up on?
I actually think during the pandemic now, I kind of took it easy, and my wife and I designed and had built a new painting studio in our backyard, and so I'm gonna start painting again. That's the idea of investing in the studio anyway, and so I'm gonna try to get back to sending a few covers in too. If I'm painting out there, doing other things, then I'll take a stab again at covers.
How about the cartooning? You're still sending batches in regularly?
Yeah, but I'm addicted to the process. Yeah, so I send a batch anywhere from 3 to 15 cartoons a week.
That's
and I've been doing that. I hate to say how many years now, but that's a lot of cartoons.
Yes, and a lot of ideas to come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just weeded through and threw out several thousand recently that I couldn't stand looking at again. They were unsalvageable.
Once the idea is once you have that set, how long does a cartoon typically take you?
To come up with ideas, or to do the finishes, or both?
Do the fin. Once you have the idea, the actual drawing.
I do the rough quickly, and that's what I send off with the hopes that they get an okay, something. And then when I get the finish, I used to go through reams of paper to get the finish looking as spontaneous as the rough. Nowadays I do them pretty quickly. The finishes, they come more quickly now, and I actually try to stay closer to, either use the rough or stay closer to the rough.
And you're doing them on paper or do you use a computer?
I do on paper.
Mhm.
For years, I used the old fashioned, kind of like a monk, the dip pen in ink.
Wow.
But now I just use, there's some pens, I guess they're called Corral pens. Or no, they're Copic pens. And I like the variety there. I used to like the dip pens because they were more expressive, but the expressiveness isn't really valued that much now. So I'm going with the flow. Excuse me.
So with,
Before, oh, go ahead, Beth.
oh, I was going to ask him with thousands of cartoons that you said you went through because you couldn't stand to look at them anymore, the rejected ones, what do you do with them? All the originals, did you actually throw them away or do you save them?
I burned a bunch of them now
Oh.
that I was really sick of. I do keep going through them and I revise them. Sometimes I'll just change a word before I send them back again.
Mhm.
I usually try to tweak them somehow,
Mhm.
one way or another, even changing the drawings or redrawing them before I send them back.
Uh-huh.
And try and update them or get rid of all the boardroom cartoons, although I sold, they ran an Easter boardroom one of mine just a couple of issues ago, but that's rare. So anyway, the businessy type ones are pretty much out and poking fun at sort of upper class mores are kind of out now too. So there's certain types of cartoons that really just don't have a market anymore, I don't think.
Mhm. Do you think the boardroom cartoons are out because of COVID, because of people working from home, or what kind of led to that going out?
Mostly I'm just not seeing the magazine for whatever reasons they have
Mhm.
for not running. I think it's not really people, say millennials picture
Mhm.
a business anymore. You know, things are what is open space workplaces and all that.
Right.
Kind of a
Right.
different emphasis now.
Mhm. Mhm. You have a great one of making fun of the upper class that I absolutely think is hysterical. Two men driving in the back of a limousine, and one says to the other, "I have my pants put on one leg at a time."
Yeah,
I never see.
just like every other 1%er. You know,
Yeah, it's so great. So great.
I think.
Oh my gosh. So I'm sad to see those kind of cartoons go out because I still find them very funny.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, well, I went in trying to break into New Yorker. That I really tried to kind of figure out the slant
Mhm.
back then and the tone.
Mhm.
And so now I'm having to kind of shed that to some extent, you know,
Yeah.
to submit now.
Mhm. So what is your go-to these days?
Well, my son and daughter, who are millennials, they gave me some dictionary recently of hip terms. So, but the emphasis doesn't seem to be on language that much either now. You know, but buzzwords and all really aren't played up the way they used to be. So
Mhm.
I just go with what sort of my gut, you know, whatever I think might be amusing now.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I mean, there are certain tropes or ideas that will never really go out of style, I think. Like you have the good intentions in hell, the construction people in
yeah,
hell, and there's a sign that says your good intentions at work because
yeah,
the road to hell is paved with good intentions, things like that.
right.
Love that. And
Thanks.
St. Peter, with the man standing at St. Peter saying, "What, you count SAT scores?" Things like
Yeah.
that. I think will never go out of style.
Yeah,
Um,
well, that's interesting you say that. I kind of measure that a little bit with what still gets reprinted,
mhm,
and certain ones from that era get still very regular reprints in textbooks or
uh-huh.
even on not blogs, I guess, but whatever, websites rather.
Mhm, mhm. There was one that really struck a chord with me years ago when my kids were little. um, It was a preschool teacher talking to kids in an art class, little kids talking in an art class. And she says, today we're going to explore and paint how we feel when our mommies pick us up late from preschool. Or something. Yeah, or when we're picked up late from preschool. And I was like, oh, man.
My daughter was in preschool then, so that was autobiographical.
That was a zinger. It was great, but
That's struck
I
a chord with
was
you, Beth.
I was that guilty mom, you know.
I think everyone's guilty at one time or another. You mostly got the wrath from the teachers.
Yeah, so funny.
Do you have a cartoon that you think you're most well known for, or that's most reprinted?
It seems to change. For a while, I was getting a lot of reprints on a rat that has hung itself inside its cage, so it was hanging by a noose, and it was the scientists were saying discouraging data on antidepressants.
Ooh.
And
Yeah.
that had a lot of reprints over the years. The one that has probably the most reprints is a boardroom type one, where the boss is looking at a Christmas card, and he says, let's see, season's greetings looks okay to me. Let's run it by legal.
Yeah. That's a
Which
classic.
actually became a little, in later years, became a little bit more topically relevant.
Mhm.
Yes.
With the attack on Christmas and stuff, but it was pretty innocuous when I did it.
How long ago was that published?
Oh,
Actually, I'm looking at 1992.
okay,
Wow.
It's just funny how nothing changes.
Mhm.
That's a very today relevant cartoon.
yeah, and that one every Christmas brings in more money than I got originally for the cartoon. I sold it. Been on Christmas cards and gets a lot of prints for people's walls and
Mhm.
coffee mugs and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's funny. So many years later, and nothing changes.
That's true, but some things, I think some things do get dated. Some of mine feel old to me, and other ones seem to hold it better.
Well, I'm not sure that antidepressant one, as funny as it is, would sell today.
Yeah,
Because they're, sensitive, certain topics become sensitive and not-
I agree. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I'm kind of aware of that when I go through older ones to decide what to rework and all too,
Mhm.
of what times are always changing.
Mhm.
I know Bob Mankoff did some kind of a little study of who liked and didn't like certain cartoons that were popular. And I guess the takeaway that I got from his study was that nobody likes everything.
Mhm.
And
It's true.
that especially ones with animals, you're gonna get people who are gonna be upset
Mhm.
one way or another. Even maybe the really popular ones will get maybe 80% thumbs up, but
Mhm.
some objection.
Mhm.
Well, you do a lot of cartoons with animals in it. I see, there's some great dog cartoons in there, some great cat ones. And
Yeah.
do you have an affinity for animals, or is it just
Yeah.
something that works for you?
I definitely have an affinity for animals. Yeah. I've always had a dog, and we have a yellow lab now.
Okay.
And yeah, and also animals will carry a joke better than people a lot of times. You get a line said by an animal, and it works maybe in a way that it wouldn't work at all if a person said it, but just by getting it into the animal world.
Yeah, you had
Speaking
a dog cartoon with a dog at a vet, and he's wearing a gown, and the
I
dog's
love that
asking,
one.
"Can I keep my collar on?"
Yeah.
It's a great mashup between people and dogs. It works great. I love that one.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Yeah, my vet actually had that one under glass on his counter. So I got to see my dog in every other week.
One of my other favorites is the lifeguard at a pool, and he says, "Dems out, Republican swim."
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Instead of adult swim, Republican swim. So funny.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
more relevant every day, isn't it?
Mhm. But you have done pretty many political cartoons. Is that something you
Yeah,
still
New
like to
Yorker did.
tackle?
Since I'm mostly aiming for the New Yorker, off and on they become more political in their cartoons. I think they're more political now in their writing and less with their cartoons right now, but that seems to change off and on. But I follow politics way too closely, so it infiltrates no matter what I do.
Yeah.
Do you find it helps get your frustrations out to actually put it out on paper, your frustrations at what's going on in the world?
It's not direct, but I think just drawing and doodling is kind of a tranquilizer anyway for me, you know.
Do you have a favorite cartoon of your own?
No, I go with whatever's popular. If other people like them, oh, well, maybe there is something there. A lot of them are kind of too close. They seem real. You know, they don't seem funny. And my wife is my editor, and she goes through, and I used to do about 30 ideas a week, and she'd go through and toss out all of them that she didn't like, and she picked the 10 or 12 that I'd send in, and she's done that since we met. Since I started cartooning, she's the decider.
What's your process for coming up with those ideas? Do you kind of just come up with them throughout the week and jot down notes, or do you actually sit down with a blank piece of paper and just think?
Until I built the studio in the backyard, I was going out to local cafes every day. And I'd go out and get a tall latte, and I'd stay in the cafe for 2.5 to 3 hours. And it was kind of like punching a time clock. And I just stay and doodle and work it through, kind of like math problems. And then when I was done, I rarely would come up with that. They don't just, you know, come flapping by like butterflies or anything. I get them when I sit down and think about them.
Will you find yourself just doodling and drawing and then backfilling a caption after the fact?
When I doodle, I just mindlessly doodle, or I doodle for ideas for paintings or things. But when I try to come up with cartoon ideas, it's a very set goal.
Mm-hmm.
That I want to produce half a dozen cartoons at a sitting or whatever, and that's kind of the goal. And I just keep working at it until the time's up, whatever I have.
So you're typically an idea man first before you start drawing. You like to kind of have
it's kind of, it happens at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of start, sometimes do a little and the ideas start coming out of that, but it's usually during my sessions at the cafes, almost always.
A little off track. Speaking of Bob Mankoff, was he selling to the magazine when you sold? So was he selling prior to you?
I think he got in a couple of years before I did, and he was always in the waiting room to show his work when I would occasionally go into New York and all. So I always liked chatting with him and all. And I never guessed that he had the ambition back then to become the cartoon editor, but I think that we talked later, and he said that when I kind of questioned, did you always know that this is something you wanted to do, to become an editor? And he said, well, I knew I didn't want to keep doing what you're doing. So I said, well, I'm happy doing this. And I thought he was a good cartoon editor.
Yeah, that's why I ask. I always I'm just curious if there was a short list with him getting that job. If you were aware that, sounds like it was a total surprise to you. Seems like it was a surprise
Yeah,
to most.
and not living in New York and going in very often. Everything was a surprise to me. Yeah. I wasn't on the inside of any circles.
Did you ever make it to any of the Tuesday lunches with the
Yeah,
cartoonist when you went?
Yeah, I did.
Mhm.
Yeah, I tried to time that so that I could go out. That was always fun.
Mhm.
And when I stayed in Connecticut for those 3 months, I went to the lunches every week then too.
And so, in addition to cartoon, I know you do a few books as well, right? You illustrate, and do you write them as well? The children's books.
Yeah, I've done, I guess, 7 children's books now. I write them and draw, illustrate them.
What got you into doing that? You just wanted to do a little more long form writing?
Well, the way I do it is still pretty short form. Well, I used to tell
children's books, right? So it's not a ton of words.
The children's books, yeah, and the light on narrative, heavy on pictures. But I used to tell lots of stories to our kids when they were little, and my wife actually recorded some of them, and she encouraged me back then to do children's books, but I didn't take it very seriously until my kids were grown, and then I went back and took a shot at it.
You still doing them? Do you plan to do more?
I've got drawers and drawers full of starts for children's books. The middle part and the endings are the tough part on children's books. But I have endless ideas of what might be great if only I could finish them. But yeah, I'm going to go back and try them again.
Let's jump into the caption contest.
Sure.
So you were the very first caption contest, right? At least when it went weekly. The most well-known caption contest is yours. Yes.
Yeah. It was the rat one. Yeah, another rat one. I'm sort of the rat guy. But yeah, I sold that cartoon with a caption, and I guess a few days after they bought it, Bob gave me a call, and he was kind of apologetic on the phone. He said, "I'm not sure you're going to like what I'm going to ask you, but we have an idea for doing something on the last page, doing a contest and having readers submit the captions, and would it be okay if we took that cartoon of yours and made it the first one and took the caption off of it and let the readers have at it?" And so I had kind of mixed feelings about it, and I actually still do about the contest, but I said okay. And what was kind of interesting, I guess they got thousands of submissions, and I guess they still do really get deluged with captions, but the caption that won was the identical one to mine.
That was your original caption. More important, however, is what I learned about myself.
Yeah, I think there was one word that was changed, but it's the same caption. Yeah.
Wow.
That's frustrating.
That's not the only thing that happened. A couple of other ones that was identical. Another one was the bird out on a limb wearing a thong, and the bird watchers are down below, and one person's looking in the field guide saying it's a thong bird.
Mhm.
Well, that was my caption too, and that's the one that won.
Yeah, that happens fairly often.
Yeah, well, that one's more obvious though. The one with the rats, that's crazy that's the same caption.
Yeah, that was a little more of a surprise. Yeah. But Paul, you said you submitted a caption for one of mine, the guy going through Heaven's Gate.
Yeah, that one. It's the one caption I entered back, was it 2007, I think. And I did not enter another caption for like almost 15 years because it was so bad of a caption. So the cartoon is a man, he's an angel now, flying into heaven, and he has golf clubs and a drill bringing into heaven with him. And there's two angels off to the side commenting on this. And one of them says to the other, and I totally misunderstood what that was. I thought that guy was being thrown out of heaven because he brought the grill and the golf clubs with him. So my caption was, you know what they say, don't bring a barbecue to hog heaven. And that was just, I did not enter again for, what is it, 13 years after that, because it's like, that was just embarrassing that I entered that.
No, you're being thrown out of heaven. I get it. That makes sense.
Do you recall any from the caption contest that you thought were from yours that you thought were particularly good or particularly bad, where you thought this is terrible?
Yeah, the one I like the best, the cartoon was of a guy sitting in front of his TV set pointing a rifle at the screen, and he's in camouflage outfit, and it's a PBS program on wildlife, and there's a deer on the screen, and his wife is talking to a friend looking in through the door. And I don't remember what my caption was. It had something about PBS or something, but the caption that I really liked, it was, "This is why I wear bright colors around the house."
Yeah.
I have a favorite caption contest of yours that I'm going to share. I didn't remember it until I just saw it today. And it's probably one of my favorite in the history of the contest. I thought it was just very clever. I'll share it. It's a bunch of people crawling through the desert. And I felt this caption kind of came out of left field and was fantastic. It said, "I don't know about you, but I'd be willing to chip in for a new contact lens."
Yeah, well, I wouldn't.
It means nothing until you look at it and go, you know what? It kind of does look like they're all looking for a missing contact lens.
Yeah, no, that's good. I didn't even remember what the caption was.
I didn't remember this from a very long time ago, 2007, but
Yeah.
I remember thinking that is a great caption.
Yeah, that's I forgot that one, but that's good.
Now, you mentioned you had mixed feelings. I'm curious what those mixed feelings are. What do you think are the kind of the positives, and what do you think are the negatives of a caption contest?
I guess the positive is that it gets people involved with. I think it's a fun activity for people to enter it. So I'm all for that. But to me, a cartoon with a caption that works really right, where the drawing and the caption are sort of, they're working together. They're sort of co-conspirators or whatever, and they work perfectly and they mesh together. And I won't go so far as to say they're pieces of art, but they have an integrity. And to break that up and kind of alter the form isn't quite as pure as kind of the perfect caption, the perfect drawing as it's conceived by the cartoonist.
Yeah, but in most cases, when they take them for the caption contest, do you feel it was not probably a great cartoon and caption? In other words, do you think it was probably not sellable unless there was a caption contest?
What's saleable is so quirky, and it changes so much from one week to another. I've submitted things the third or fourth time, and they've been purchased. I'm going back in history some, but they've been purchased with a note praising the cartoon or whatever, love getting this little piece of summer fun or something was one notice I got back to a cartoon that I submitted probably 3 times before. So you never, I guess I think that a really good caption and good cartoon a good drawing should sort of stay together. It's like one piece. It has some integrity, but I get your point, and the other side of me that actually likes getting one in the cartoon contest kind of agrees with you. That it's a drawing and people have fun coming up with ideas. So I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, and it makes people just more aware of you as a cartoonist when they see it in the caption contest, and they kind of seek out your stuff. I think it's great personally for
Yeah.
cartoonists in general.
Yeah, no, I definitely see the positive side.
Yeah, it's probably very frustrating, right? When you submit a cartoon 3 or 4 times, you know it's good, and then they eventually buy it. The whole rejection process seems extremely frustrating.
Well, if you learn quickly whether you can take rejection.
Yeah.
And a lot of really talented people don't want to do that. Can't do it and don't want to put up with it. And I've met a lot over the years who there's no reason that they couldn't be successful except that they don't like that process.
Have they ever bought more than one of yours in a batch? In other words, if you send a batch of 10, have they bought 3?
Yeah, three's my top. But they bought 3 more than once. Back in when Tina Brown came on, I thought, the new change of administration, just like politics in Washington, D.C., a new administration probably means the end. But they ran one of mine in the first issue that when she came on, well, that's a good sign. She when she was on, I did very well, and they bought 2 and 3 a number of times over the years.
Far more often than not, though, I would assume they buy one. If you send 15, they'll buy 1.
If I'm lucky. Yeah.
Right, 1 or none, but usually it's 1 and not 2 or 3 from one batch.
Rarely 2, very rarely 2. Yeah.
So when you're submitting, do you think strategy like that? In other words, if you have 5 really good ones, do you think I'm not going to send all these 5 at once because they're just not going to buy 5? I'll send, 7 that aren't that great, and then this one great one, and I'll just do that for the next 5 weeks until I get rid of these 5 pieces of gold that I have here.
I'd put in, if any of them are great, I'd put 2 great ones in together. But yeah, no, I definitely strategize a little bit like that. But they surprise me so many times that they'll take one of the 10 that I stuck in that I didn't especially think was great. So,
yeah, and I think that's the benefit, I guess, of doing 10, in that it just forces you to do the ones that you even think, well, this isn't really that good, and then that's the one they buy. Yeah,
well, I've been surprised. My wife always picks them. She's been way better than I am on picking the one that's going to go for any given week. But you really never know. Humor is so quirky, and what's funny to a cartoon editor one week isn't the next week. I've had a number of that have been killed too. They never ran them. They send them back. They change their mind about them.
Mm.
I'm wondering, you mentioned earlier that when you first started, you were one of 3 cartoonists that would be brought in a given year. And nowadays, Emma has brought in 110 or more cartoonists in the past 3-4 years. So I'm wondering, what your thoughts are about that.
Well, the New Yorker's changed a lot, and I think actually Bob Mankoff started that toward the end of his tenure. I remember when he came on, he said he wanted diversity, and he wanted to have more women and gays and minorities, and it took him a while to actually start doing it. But towards the end of when he was in power there. He was doing it more, and I think Emma has picked up on that and really opened it up now, and it's kind of a new world. And the New Yorker, kind of the New Yorker brand is changing with the times.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's too much too soon. Like they cartoonists, you don't get to really know who each cartoonist is. There's so many of them, you don't become familiar with, recognizing their work. Like that's a Twohy cartoon, that's a Cypress cartoon,
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. Yeah, and I do think that readers back in the Mr. Sean days were looking for that. So that was part of the appeal to the magazine too, that they had kind of an elite core of cartoonists, and people recognize the style and they're looking for the humor. So that's an interesting point.
Yeah, it seems there are two approaches. It's kind of you limit your cartoonists, in which case people kind of develop a relationship with the cartoonist,
Yeah.
or you open it up to everyone. And in theory, every cartoon should be a 10 because you're opening it up. You don't have 50 cartoonists, you have 50,000. So you really should be, every cartoon should be a 10 because you made the net so wide, you're only going to buy the best regardless of who drew it. Yeah. Sometimes when I look at the new entrants, they don't seem like 10s. So it's weird if your approach is, I'm going to take anything from anyone just to get the best.
Yeah.
Well, it also, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree with all your comments. Yeah. But I think if you are getting this kind of diversity, then the cartoons are coming from different places, and people who share that demographic, I guess, are going to enjoy that one cartoon, whereas it leaves other people out. So I think it's just, they're going for a more diverse audience as well.
Yeah. To me, it seems like a few weeks ago, we were speaking with David Cypress, and he talked about at some point in his career, somebody made a comment about the cartoons being just New Yorker cartoons, not cartoons, not Twohy cartoons or Barsati cartoons, or like they were referred to as just New Yorker cartoons, as if the New Yorker created them, is what he said. Yeah. And to me, the way there's so many cartoons these days coming in there, it almost is becoming just New Yorker cartoons, because you recognize the single panel, the black and white, the look of them, and you're like, oh, that must be a New Yorker cartoon, but you have no idea who the cartoonist is because there's so many of them. And it almost is like, has become what the older school cartoonists did not ever want it to become. You know what I mean? Like, it's very strange how that's happening.
But yeah, no, I agree. And I'm, as I said, I've survived a number of administrations now. And so I'm just pleased that they're still including me in it. But I mean, it could just as easily go the other way anytime.
Right. Do you ever submit to the daily cartoon?
No, I get up too late.
Well, you're in California also.
I'm in California. So it doesn't work.
Do you have any? You have any in the cartoon bank with them for the caption contest?
They just bought one.
Oh, great!
For the caption contest, I just sent it off a couple of days ago. They wanted it right away, so maybe it'll come out in the next few weeks. I don't know.
Oh, fantastic! That's great. Look forward to that.
Let's see. I guess I do have a caption on it, but I'm not going to give it an insight.
Yeah, no, we'll reach out to you after a winner is chosen, and we'll ask for that caption. Oh, this was fantastic. We're coming on an hour now. Typically don't like to keep the guests longer than an hour. I want to be respectful of your time, but this was great. This was fantastic.
It went by fast. You guys have a lot of good questions. You're into this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. Really much appreciated. And we look forward to your cartoon in the caption contest.
Okay, good. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank
you, Mike.
you so much.
Thank you.